Hello, welcome back to Azure Centric on our Azure weekly updates. My name is Marcos Nogueira, and with me I have my best friend Andrew Lowes. How are you, Andrew?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me again this week, Marcos.
You're very welcome. It's been a long time, I have to say.
It
I
has. It's
was
been a day or
itching.
two.
I was itching to just record with you, but it was not possible because we were on vacations. I think we deserved that. And besides that, we were really busy on the new project with all the things that we are doing. So we took kind of a,
A temporary
a temp.
hiatus.
Exactly, you took the words from my mouth. I was saying a
Yes,
different words, but yes, it was the same, the same thing, basically.
exactly. Yeah, it has been busy. And I guess it might be worth noting that we have attempted to record a few times, but we've had some technical glitches.
Yeah,
Though we may love Azure and we love our technology, sometimes the Murphy's Law just kicks in, and we haven't been able to get an episode
I
out for
think we
a
can
couple
blame the
days.
5G in this case.
May- I wasn't ready for that.
No, that's okay. Well, we
Maybe
can blame the
we've both had our
5G.
big upgrades, right? So
Yeah, because you were camping. We did try. It didn't want work at least for our quality, and
it's
now
so
we are
tough.
back at home. It
I'm
is.
waiting for a very certain. I try not to mention too many brand names. I'm aware of that, but I'm really waiting for a very important and media friendly satellite internet providing company, so that I can get my camper hooked up to work in very remote regions of the mountains. So
Yeah.
then my backdrop will look a little bit more beautiful in this case.
That's okay.
Not that my
That's
office
okay.
is too bad. I'm very grateful to have a roof over my head these days. But
No, absolutely. But that's a very interesting because I had a friend of mine that he got the satellite internet from Elon Musk, the Tesla. I think it's a
hmm
Tesla or whatever it is. But
yes,
you cannot be. You need to be on that position always. So I thought
that's
that
correct. It's yeah, the geolocation is
yes,
locked
it's
down. So
locked
what I'm
down.
waiting for is the RV service that I've read about that is coming in the next few months. So I figure if it launches over the winter for the southern US, they work out the bugs, then maybe we get it in Canada. And as long as it's not geo-locked, that means I can go anywhere where I can see the sky, in
I will
theory.
put it even in my
So,
car. I don't care.
well, I don't want to advertise free for them. Send us a little promo pack or
Exactly.
something, or at least a T-shirt for crying out loud.
we are.
Why in COVID is it so hard to get free
It's
t-shirts
not
from
t-shirts.
vendors
It's
these
swag in
days?
general. Because oh my god, my
Right?
swag is running out and is wearing.
My Azure t-shirts are all from 2 and 3 plus years ago,
Yes,
and
yes,
man, do they look like
yes.
it. They have the old logos and everything, right? The new Azure logo, since we've been in person with all these things. But
Anyways,
anyways, so yes, so there's been an absolute ton of updates to Azure. It didn't slow down for
no,
summer,
it
and the
didn't.
Azure product teams did. I don't think I even took a day off to have a
No,
nap. There's so many new
there are
updates
so
to
many
chat
new
about.
updates. We miss a few of those quite big, important in this
We
case.
did.
But
Yeah, the biggest one that impacted me was the Azure
yes,
Firewall and the premium SKU when it came GA for Azure. That was a really big,
yes,
important kind of a week
absolutely.
in my world.
Absolutely. But we are back in this case, and this show is about the weeklies. So we are still covering the week that we are past in this case, and that is the goal. We are not doing a kind of a retrospective kind of show. Although
Yes.
although at the end of the year we could do it, right? The best one. That's
I love that idea.
that's a very
I
good
love that
idea.
idea.
Kind of a special one that we can do it. we have to just record before we starting the new years or the procedures of the new years, because usually that involves some alcohol, and it will be a
Yes.
different type of show. If this is already funny, uh, probably we should.
Well, we we don't usually have to hit any of the special boxes on YouTube when
Exactly.
we upload. We might have to check profanity and things like that. My filter tends to disappear a bit with alcohol, as it does for many folks. So,
It's not that. It's like without alcohol, we already deviate from the subject so easily. With alcohol, it's like going to be we talk everything
you'll
except
need
Azure.
external storage. You're going to need a bigger hard
Yeah, absolutely.
drive. 4 hours later, we're still trying to hit topic number one. There you go. There was a
Absolutely,
list.
absolutely. Oh my God, how I miss this, I cannot describe. But this been a good week, although a lot of updates. We had to make our cut because a lot of them it was not in our realm. And again, if you are looking at
Absolutely.
this show as the first time that you landing at the Azure Centric, usually we
We're
cover
so sorry.
we cover. We apologize already. We didn't even start, and we already started to apologize. We are truly Canadian, but that's okay.
We have to be Canadian. That's what
Absolutely.
we do.
But this week is a week that we can say that is about some of those networking related kind of week,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, there was, well, it's interesting to me as well because we had a clear theme, but we don't cover a whole lot of news around
And
Kubernetes. And
databases and all of that. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And there was quite a lot of that. So if that's your world, containerization and database, hop on over to Azure Updates blog and have a look. There's been a lot of really cool updates this past week in those areas, but ours is a little bit more networking focused and kind of more service oriented a little bit,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely. So what we can do is for before we roll, we want to thank you to all of you that even when we were on vacations, right? Um, you guys did not stop supporting us. So if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you like the content and if you like this type of conversation, don't forget to smash that like button. If you think that we are too funny and you want to put a thumbs down, we are accepting that as well. Uh, so
Absolutely. Yep. We welcome all opinions,
absolutely,
positive, even more positive, uh,
exactly.
all the kinds of positive.
All kinds of positive, even if it's come from negative, we want the positive of negative. Okay, okay,
Absolutely. We'll look at your comments
absolutely, yeah,
and we do actually make an effort to review many of the comments, though we can't respond to everything. Marcos will make a paper airplane and barbecue a hamburger for me for every positive comment we have next week
absolutely,
from this video.
absolutely. So I think it's
I'm
time
going
to
to be
roll,
so
my
full
friend.
of
Otherwise,
hamburgers.
it's going to be the longest introduction ever.
It's
Let's go.
close.
Let's roll. So, welcome back. And now let's jump into the first update. Generally available of Service Tag Discover API. This might sound it might sound a little bit different from what we always cover because we do cover the part of infrastructure and the part of going on with our experience on the infrastructure side of it. And this sounds a little bit different from we usually speak, but this update, okay, it's pretty cool because the
Hmm.
Service Tag Discovery API, it's now in GA, and you can call an API, okay, to list over the 60 service tags and their corresponding IP range. So we already covered these service tags, right? And one of
Mhm.
them, for example, is like get me or just when you talking, for example, on firewalls and you want to put a region, okay, or you want to put a kind of a service, you can use instead of all the IP ranges and all the DNS domains, for example, you can use that service tag. And I think that is pretty
Exactly.
cool to have that. And now it's available. And it's not only that, it's the possibility of us now querying those service tags.
Absolutely. It makes it easy for us to keep everything up to date in an automated way. So, for quite a while, we've both been recommending to our customers that when they configure things like VPNs, or even if they're just consuming other Azure based services, like, I don't know, Microsoft 365, for example, that we're using DNS based tags. That is service tags. So, the service tags kind of return those IP ranges of all of the endpoints that Microsoft uses to communicate with us in the outside world over the internet. And that's why these rules, or these service tags that we can create rules around, is really important, because it helps us to lock down communications to those destinations or from those sources. So this is a really, really great step forwards, because now we can do a little bit deeper automation and further automation with those service tag endpoints.
Absolutely. And now you can query that, you can incorporate this into your PowerShell, in this case script, that you querying the service tags by, for example, give me all the service tag that, for example, is to a certain location. So and then you will
Exactly.
see
Yeah.
all the service tags that you can use, and you can now leverage that. So it's pretty cool that now we have this API that allow us to do that. Although you can use the API to replace the downloading and parsing the weekly JSON files. So now instead
Mhm.
of downloading all of those JSON files with all the API, with all the service tags, now basically you're doing by query by an API. So they update at the backend. They even do automation. I think it's a kind of a nested automation, because now
Yep.
we have an API, right? That it does the automation of our automation. So there is an automation for service
Absolutely.
tags, right? That we use. And now they are making this API for us to query the service tags that is making it's difficult to explain, but it's pretty cool.
It is. And the one thing I really liked about this is that they actually, in the update, kind of rare that they do this, but they've provided some sample
Yep.
PowerShell on how to format your PowerShell queries. So I think it's a really positive step, and I mean, honestly, be by making it so that we can use this in queries. Now we're able to apply those
Yes.
filters through
Yes.
PowerShell, so we don't have all of that data that we don't need, just the pieces we do.
Absolutely. But this API, this Discover API for service tags, is well needed because they have well over 80,000 prefixes associated with service tags. So
That's right.
downloading
That's a
those
lot to
and
filter
going through the
through.
list, it's a daunting task. So now
Yeah, and
we can
that's
query.
why I think, yeah. So previously we had to count on firewall companies
Yeah,
to filter that out for us and update their rules. And this is going to help those providers be faster at doing this. So we'll experience less interruptions overall and better consistency with those firewall rules and communications between our on-premises and Azure-based resources. It's going to be really great.
absolutely, absolutely. But talking in firewall and moving to our next update is the Azure Firewall Premium is now general available in 5 new Azure regions. So US government in Texas, US government in Arizona, US government in Virginia, China North
That's a big
2,
one.
and China East 2. So
Also big.
so basically, they are growing this part, and now all of these 5 regions, 3 of those, it basically covers the entire US, um, Central, West in this case, and East in this case for US government, right? And China
Yeah.
as well will have these firewalls because, like you mentioned, this Azure Firewall Premium it was one of the topics that during the period of vacations that we didn't talk about it, but it's huge. Um,
It's
I did
massive, right? So
implement a
this
few
is,
times, and I have to say
yeah,
that blows my mind.
right. So this is not the same as what we know of high performance on premises firewalls. This is cloud native, next gen firewalling, kind of at a new level because now we have firewalling that
Yeah,
scales. So there's so many cool features. I don't want this to turn into a deep dive about Azure Firewall Premium, and I feel like we could easily fill another hour just talking offhand about it. But there is really important pieces for enterprise protection, not the least of which is this is really intended, Azure Firewall Premium, I should say, is intended to live in your landing zone, your cloud landing zone, kind of the home of
your
your
hub in
Azure
this case.
subscriptions, right? The
Yeah,
hub, exactly. And it's really the central piece. It provides a lot of different security layers, different types of security, and a lot of flexibility and integrations as well. So the premium SKU allows us to use different firewall network virtual appliances in conjunction with Azure Firewall Management. So it can get a little complex, and some good Visio drawings go a long ways when we kind of get down that road. But it's really really cool that this is filtering out quickly to the U.S. government Azure facilities. That's not the right word. Regions. There we go.
without going
Well, they
deeply,
are facilities.
what I like about these Azure Firewall Premium is really the next generation of firewall. Okay, and I have to say that before they launched the premium, the Azure Firewall was a little bit behind of all of the other ones. Okay, so Palo Altos of Life,
It was.
FortiGates, the Cisco ASAs, they were really
Yeah.
dominating the market, right? And doing
They had a lot of those next gen
yes
features already at
already at
market,
market.
and Azure Firewall was kind of
Yeah,
waiting to kind of catch up a little bit.
but
But
now
now Azure Firewall has jumped
in
in
front,
front,
yes,
and they're now
absolutely,
leading
yes, yeah.
the way in
And
security.
it goes what I think about this when you talk about Azure Firewall, and if you allow me to just not deviate the conversation, but going a little bit more is on a perspective of the Azure Firewall is it goes towards of what you have available on, for example, the Microsoft Defender part of it. Because on Microsoft Defender, you have, for example, the URL filtering, right? You have
Mhm.
the web categories, so you can put those categories, for example, inside of the web filtering. That now you have that type of filtering that is the next gen that we're talking about. But at
It
the same
is,
time,
yeah, distributed to the endpoint in that
exactly.
case.
The same time, it does things like TLS inspection that right now
Yes,
a lot of firewalls doesn't do that. Okay,
that's absolutely
and
correct.
besides that, it goes even deeper, and you have the IDPS, the intrusion detection in prevention system that allows you
Yep,
to, for example, if you have this firewall and you have a website and you have all of that, allows you to prevent, for example, SQL injections on your website. So it goes on that
exactly,
level that is really, and besides, like you mentioned, all of that it go and grows and is elastic, and it should be placed
exactly.
on your hub. So yes, absolutely centralize that.
Yeah, and
Absolutely doing that.
exactly. And the one thing I want to maybe mention to kind of complement what you're kind of painting the picture with here is there's two SKUs. There's firewall
Yeah.
standard, which is a traditional firewall, performs kind of that blocking, the restricting, and you can put it in block all, and then you allow based on the exceptions, right? Now, Azure Firewall Premium overlays a little bit on top of that, right? And that's where it provides those additional services like IDPS and TLS inspection, URL filtering, web content, and web category filtering, right? And this is really about kind of bringing everything cloud native and providing that full ecosystem of protection, right? So we think a lot in infrastructure about servers and
Yeah,
endpoints,
absolutely.
but we have to protect our virtual data center the same as we do a physical data center. And this is really what this is,
Yeah.
right? This is that protection. And I've been trying to choose a better word, but at the front door. And no, we're not talking about Azure Front Door. In this case, that's something different. But this is the doorway to your
Absolutely.
Azure environment. And this is a really great
Yeah.
lock,
And with these 5 new regions, the Azure Firewall
right?
Premium, right? It's reaching the 45 regions of Azure, including
That's
this. So
amazing.
out of the plus 60, we have like a huge, and this is was not launched not long time ago. Okay, we have to say
No,
this
this is just a
a
couple of
couple of
months
months
ago.
ago,
Yeah,
and they already have in the entire Azure landing, Azure footprint. This case, right? Uh,
exactly. Yeah, there is huge
Absolutely.
demand for the premium SKU. And to be fair, it was in preview for quite a
Yeah.
while. I don't remember how long, but it was around quite a long time in preview. And I remember using it in testing and integrating different systems with it in a couple of test subscriptions. And as soon as it went GA, there was a lot of enterprises that were very excited
Yeah.
about it because of all of these features, especially that TLS inspection. That's a really, really big
Yeah.
deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Moving on. It's
Sorry,
okay.
we get excited about these
Moving
things.
on. This is in preview, and it's a new centralized management experience for Azure Hybrid Benefits for SQL Server in public preview. So this
But
means
Marcos, we don't usually talk
we
about
don't usually
SQL.
talk, but this I think it's audible mention because it's talk about the helping reducing the costs using these Azure Hybrid Benefits. So you have that benefits with Windows, in this case, the Windows Server license, that you can save, if I'm not mistaken, up to 40%, something like that.
Hmm.
So it's huge
Yep.
when organizations already have that license and they use the benefits of Azure Hybrid to either run that workload on premise, and if they want, in this case, extend that to Azure, they will pay usually, I think it's around 40% less of the cost of the VM in this case, right?
That's
In
right.
this case, we
Yeah,
don't
it's
know how much it is. It's not being
yeah,
public.
we don't know the percentages offhand, and SQL licensing is CPU based and RAM based. So it can be a little bit
Yeah.
particular. What's the right word here? Individual for every case. But the reason we did want to mention this update is because it is a significant dollar saving for those organizations heavily invested in SQL infrastructure. And because we talk about infrastructure, though this crosses the line to database, we're really talking about that hybrid licensing benefit
Yeah.
for the infrastructure of the servers running your
Exactly.
SQL. So that's how we got there. But this is a really good thing. It is going to help quite a few large enterprise customers as well, but even small and medium businesses that have invested into SQL Server on premises, they're going to be able to kind of cash in on some savings, but also realize the benefits of migrating to Azure. And if I'm not mistaken, Microsoft is still backing that program to help companies migrate their SQL to Azure Cloud.
Yes. Yeah, I think there is. I think there is. Moving to the next topic, public preview. Still in public preview. Uh, Customize Azure Static Web Apps authentication with serverless function. And this is pretty cool
Mm.
because right now, again, this is in preview, so means that don't use this in production. Azure Static Web
Absolutely.
Apps, they are in production, but customizing the authentication for the serverless function, it's in preview. Okay, so take some cautions when you use this. You should not use this in production, otherwise you might have issues, and then the support is on best effort. And when these become available, you might need to redeploy. So those are the things that we experience in
Hmm.
our lives, right? But this is pretty cool
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
now it going to the Azure Static Webs. I have to say that I did use a few times. Pretty cool, uh, because
Hmm.
it's a way that you can have your site that is basically a static site, right? That you don't need to update on Azure Web Apps, and basically allows you to do it if you have the grow or not on your site, right? And now with authentication
Exactly.
for a serverless function, it's, oh my god, it's a dream come true.
Well, it brings our back to the forefront of web apps,
Yes.
really, right? Because one of the big things with the user authentication is that this feature specifically uses that Microsoft Graph
Yeah.
API to determine what roles the user has within Azure Active Directory group
Yeah.
memberships, right? So this is a really 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 big update, and I know it's in
Yeah.
preview, but it's pretty darn
It
exciting.
is, and makes this, in this case, functionality, or makes this feature way more secure, because it's not because it's
Absolutely.
a static web, right? A static web app, that you don't need authentication. You might still need authentication because a static web means that you are not updating constantly, but you can still make calls to another microservices, to all of the
Oh,
other things,
absolutely. A lot of
right?
Yeah, a lot of static web apps have an authentication based front end. It might be, um, I think, a good example of this is if we think of how certain companies, let's pick on HP, for example, how they do their support KBs when you need to look up a technical document. You have to log into something, and then they have a set of static documents. They're certainly not dynamically generated, and then you go in, but you have to have a login, you have to have an active account. So there's some authentication on the front of that, right?
Absolutely.
So this is kind of the parallel to that type of a system.
Absolutely. But it's not the only update regarding Azure Static Web Apps. In GA now, you have IP-based web protection, okay, for the static web apps. So now you can protect, you can restrict based on your IP to control the access to your static web apps. So basically saying that, for example,
Through service
to
tags.
service tags, yes, exactly. That's the
Yeah,
part that I
which
was.
we've already talked about today.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of this, because now imagine that you want to have different types of sites, and you want to have the site only for an organization that is in US. You can lock down for the IPs on US, right? Or coming, if it's private, or if you want a different type of static website, um, on different regions, you can lock down to that region or not. So it's pretty cool that you have now that possibility. It's tremendous, because now allows you to deploy the static web apps with different regions, with different types of websites, customize it. So, for example, I'm looking at this, and immediately comes to my mind different websites, right? That they are basically more on the static, so you have a lot of the performance, a lot of that, with different type of language, right? You don't need to have all the sites around the world on English, for example. And I remember that in Portugal or even in Brazil, we can have that IP. If that IP coming from the Brazil IP or the Portuguese IP, for example, range, it will redirect directly automatically to the sites that they are in the site that is in Portuguese, for example, right? You don't need to go
Yep,
to
exactly.
the English one and then click over here, click again on the flag to go to the Portuguese site. So it's pretty cool that now you can lock down. This is only an example, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of benefit to this, and certainly Microsoft's been making a lot of, I guess, let's say, similar updates to this with security in
Yeah,
mind. And this is now the normal,
yeah,
right? Being able to lock down what countries, what IP ranges are accessing applications. This is kind of layer 7 enhancement, really,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And that's pretty cool to have those kind of uh, of controls and possibilities of now you create regions. It goes against I think a little bit of the cloud kind of everything global available, but at the same time it doesn't, because it's not because you have a web static that you need to be on the region. You can geographic disperse that, but you are locking down
Exactly.
in this case the access of that website to that IP range, and that can be good for
Yep.
internal web
And this
pages
isn't
as well.
something that's in, yeah, it's not in by
Yeah,
default, right? So this isn't something that's put in place as a barrier to restrict accessibility.
absolutely,
And in that way, I think it's true to the cloud spirit because everything is still kind of openly accessible,
absolutely.
right? It's like when you first create like a Microsoft 365 tenant, everything's kind of pre-configured to be wide open and easy to
Yes,
collaborate. But in many cases, companies have to lock it down a little bit, let's say, a lot in many cases. But this is kind of that process, right?
absolutely.
This is a process of locking things down, restricting access. That's all it
It
is.
is. But the best is for the last, I have to say. General availability of the Azure Monitor application insights in the Azure Spring Cloud. So
Right?
that's,
So I think let's kind of cover things off basics
yes,
first. We don't talk too much about Azure Spring Cloud. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what it is first?
absolutely. I was inviting you to say that, but I can explore that. So Azure,
Well, I can give you high level, but as is often the case with applications, you're sometimes
that's
deeper.
okay. Azure Spring Cloud is nothing more than a joint venture, let's call it this way. Okay, is a joint build, operated and supporting by Microsoft and VMware. Okay, it's a
Exactly.
fully managed service. Okay, for the Spring Bot applications, and basically lets you focus on building the application that run your business without having the hassle to manage your infrastructure. So basically, it's the way that you
Exactly.
can deploy using VMware, using Microsoft technologies, in this case, the cloud, the Azure, deploying those applications, those Spring Bot applications, to be able to use
Correct.
that. So, and now, because this is awesome to be able to deploy, but it was missing the part of the Azure Monitor, and in special the application inside that we are so fan of.
Exactly right. And it's those application insights that allow us to see things like response time from click to
Yeah,
page load inside your custom developed application. And that's really what we're driving kind of into here, right?
absolutely.
So it gives a lot of visibility into those applications, things like the distributed tracing, including paths of operation request from origin to destination. There's
Dependencies that you
lots
have
of,
either from
oh,
MySQL, SQL, whatever database that you
yeah.
are using, performance data,
So
a lot
this
of
is
that, right?
interesting. So the compatibility of Azure Spring Cloud And I'm going to admit openly I have a list up because because it's a long one. So not too long though, I promise. So insights into those app dependencies with SQL database, MySQL, PostgreSQL, MariaDB, JDBC, MongoDB, Cassandra, Redis, JMS, Kafka, Netty, and Webflux. Oh my gosh.
It's way
So there
easier
is a
to create a
huge,
service tag, say DBs.
thank you,
Yeah.
right? So we can pull Azure Spring Cloud
Yeah.
database service tag and tell us what database compatibilities are available in Spring
Yeah.
Cloud in that region.
Absolutely. But the feature that I'm passionate about this, and is one of the things that you have under the insights, is the application map. The application map,
Yes.
it's, oh my god, I use that a lot on all my application inside, because with a single pane of glass I can see a lot of information. I can see the dependencies,
Right.
I can see, in this case, the performance, I can see the errors, I can see if the application needs green, red, or is going to be red because it's starting to grow. It gives you a lot of insight, right? And a lot of that only from the application map, because basically
It's
resumes
true.
everything that you have inside of the application inside into
That's
your.
correct. And it visually displays it so we can integrate that with dashboards, Power
Absolutely.
BI dashboards, all those kinds of things, right?
Absolutely.
And because humans are visual creatures, this means it makes it a lot easier for your custom app to have problems identified before it impacts your customers or your consumers of your application, and your support team can get in there and fix things before anything else
And
actually
you can,
happens.
and is
Really,
for me,
really awesome.
when I always deploy the part of the Azure Monitor, especially with application insights, it's always the starting point. Is where I starting point, even.
Oh, it's a journey. I always emphasize that it's a journey.
Absolutely,
It's not a destination, right?
it is.
So we have to always be adapting, building more automation with Azure Monitor, especially with App Insights. It's very deep data. So we need to always be advancing what we're doing. And every time that application, if we're using like a pipeline to publish, it's going to change maybe every weekend or something. It gets an update, then we need to adapt our monitoring for that new update. So there's always something to kind of be adjusting. And that's the exciting part, right? Because we can see it visually, we know what we need to identify, and we can build automation and then get humans to focus on the really hard
Yeah.
problems. Really
You're
awesome.
really awesome. It really is. And with that, we come to the end of our podcast this week. Unfortunately, is not being one of the longest, but it's not being one of the shortest. It's close to one of the shortest, but which means that we are good, because now we are rested, and now we can keep coming with this type of weekly updates, kind of more for the short than for the longer, right? But we will
More
have
like,
we will have one big one, because Ignite is coming, and it's not far
oh,
away. Okay, it's in about
just a few weeks maybe?
3 or 4 weeks, and that,
Yeah.
oh my god, is going to be like the unleash the devil, in this case, in a good sense, or unleash the kraken, like a good friend of mine say, of updates. That probably is going to be like 4 hours update, if we want to talk
Oh
about all
man,
of that.
if I'm remembering to the last Ignite, I think it was I think we did do a Book of Ignite.
Yeah,
I don't know what we call this, recording, taping.
book of
Is there
news,
tape anymore? I don't think so.
book of news.
Book of
Yeah,
News. That was it. Yes. So yeah, maybe we'll do something similar again. I
absolutely,
like the idea
absolutely,
of that.
absolutely. So with that, thank you so much, Andrew, once more time. And if you're reaching this point, and if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. We really love your support. Help us grow. If you want to share the content with your friends and with your colleagues, you have our express authorization to do so. Uh, uh,
No
no
DMCA here,
no
folks. It's all
NDAs. We everything that we talk about it, it's completely. We just press the record button and we go, and then we just stop it, and that's how we roll. So no cuts, scenes, nothing.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
No, never. And definitely no script.
absolutely no script. So once again, thank you so much, Andrew, for being part of this another week, and I hope that I can see you next week. Bye for now.